Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of The Push with Nick and KP. We are back once again for a PLE predictions video, this time doing WrestleMania 42 Sunday's match card, 6 of 13 matches. Obviously, we've already gone through WrestleMania Saturday. Now is the chance for WrestleMania Sunday. Per usual, we'll go through every single match, kind of give you our thoughts on each one, and yeah, just kind of give you our thoughts on the card as a whole. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the first match, which was announced on Monday Night Raw. This has Femi going up against Brock Lesnar. Obviously, the build for this one has felt very, very big. They made Oba into an absolute beast. Any chance whatsoever Oba loses here, KP?
Oh, I mean, based on the build, I think there's probably a very high chance that Oba loses. You've had a lot of this one going Oba's way. He's been on the ascendancy. He's been, sticking it to Lesnar on pretty much every occasion. He's been looking extremely strong, which has been great. It's done him a world of good. And is absolutely the right call going into this one, building it, in the way they have done. But yeah, I think because off the back of that one, do you really just have Obafemi, just come out on top pretty much every single week in the build up and then have him go over on the WrestleMania stage 2? I think that's unlikely. I don't think a loss really does a lot for him. It's someone like Lesnar who, is a big stage player. This one isn't going to be an all-time classic in terms of a technical bout. But it probably will be a very hard-hitting, heavy sort of physical matchup that will be, pretty damn solid towards the start. I would have thought they'll come out pretty quick and just probably just absolutely beat the hell out of each other. And yeah, I do feel like Brock will probably take this one, but I would love Oba to win. Like, I think this is pretty much head against heart for me here, realistically speaking, just because of the build. Like, that's the only reason. If the build had been a bit more equal, been a bit more even, I probably would go with Obafemi. But I do just think that because of how they built it up until this point, and this is Lesnar's final year as well, I think that probably Brock will win on his last Mania appearance, and I don't think Lesnar really suffers. Oba suffers anything really from losing this one. So yeah, I'm going to go Brock winning, unfortunately, but I will go with Brock to take the victory here over Oba, and I'm sure he'll bounce back pretty quickly. To be fair, can't see it being an issue. What about you, Nick? Do you think as well that the build sort of like has told a story here that they can't go completely one-sided, or do you think that maybe that will be the case?
I do have to admit, even if logic comes into play, I thought maybe your heart would lead you the right way. Obviously, I know that hurt going against Oba, especially how over he's been on the main roster in such a short amount of time as hit on in the build. I personally don't see any issues with Oba dominating the feud and the match, just because for that reason you mentioned, Brock has mentioned, being the end of his career. I absolutely don't believe that for a minute. I believe if he retired tomorrow and they offered him a match for the next PLE and gave him enough money, he would unretire in a heartbeat. I just feel like that's kind of how it is with Brock. For better or worse, make of that what you will. But I think Oba winning here after winning that feud the way he was, making Brock not appear to be the beast that he once was because of how big Oba is. I think that's absolutely the correct decision and absolutely the way they should go. I do have Oba winning this match here and basically skyrocketing him up to the top as it should be done. So yeah, Oba to win here. I hope I'm right. I hope you're wrong. I'm sorry, KP. But yeah, that's my prediction for that one. The next match of the evening has Penta defending his Intercontinental Championship against Javon Evans, Dragon Lee, JD McDonagh, Rusev, and Rey Mysterio in what should be a hellacious ladder match with tons of spots. Yeah, this one should be a ton of fun. KP, how are you looking forward to this one?
This one should be an absolute, amazingly fun, crazy contest. High octane, just everything that you want in a ladder match here. You got so many different, high flying talents here. And then you got Rusev, who, will provide a very different side of things, which I like. I like the fact that it's not just all, one sort of style. So yeah, having a little bit of a mix of elements there will be good. As to how this match is going to go down, this is a bit of an interesting one because, Panther's not too far into his reign. You would think that realistically, that would mean that he probably has very little chance of losing this ladder match. And I think if you look at all the competitors here, JD McDonagh is an Intercontinental Champion. I don't know if I see that right now. No, like offense to him or anything, but I think it's very difficult to really build this from them going into it as a competitor because the build was quite strange, and the qualifiers were on main event for 4 of these 5. So it's a bit of an odd one. So I think JD I don't see as the Intercontinental Champion right now. Then John Evans just arrived. I probably wouldn't put it on him, already, to be fair. I think that's maybe a little bit too early. You know what they say about, having the last sort of laugh in the go home show? That is Rusev. I think that will probably mean that he's not going to be winning it either. Rey Mysterio, back end of his career, do we put the IC strap on him? I would say probably not. I think personally it's probably between Dragon Lee and Penta. I think they've both got the biggest chances here of winning in my perspective. I would like to see actually Dragon Lee hold the IC title at some point. I don't know if that's necessarily the case right now, but I think that if he was to win it, that'd be quite a cool moment for him. I'd quite like to see that. But I'm going to go with Penta to retain. I think it just makes most sense. He's quite early in. I think it's going to be a fun reign. I'm quite looking forward to seeing what he does with it. He's already defended it in AAA. He's announced the ladder match because, why not? So I don't think we're quite at the end of this, quite, I don't know, spontaneously fun IC title reign. It's been very, it's just early days still. So I want to see more of it. So I'm not ready for it to end. I'm going to go Penta to retain. And yeah, I'm just really looking forward to this crazy looking matchup. So it should be a lot of fun. Nick, what do you think? Who have you got to win this one? Is it Penta or is it a new champion to be crowned?
I'll try not to repeat some of your points because I do agree, I think, with pretty much everything. But yeah, just I think realistically coming out of this, Penta, maybe Rusev, maybe Dragon Lee, I think are your real options. Obviously, I think Ray probably not. JD, I think the way they qualify doesn't help their cause either. Kind of makes it seem like, well, these guys aren't going to win anyways. Just throw them in a ladder match, do some flippy things and call it a day. Unfortunately, that's kind of the vibe I've got from this. Obviously, until you added Rusev, but even still, you have to have the big brute in these matches, and obviously he fills that slot quite nicely. It would be a nice surprise for Javon, but I don't want to. Um, I just don't think it would be right yet. I would love Dragon Lee. Obviously, we've been hitting on these luchadors pretty hard. Would love Dragon Lee more so than Javon, and obviously would have no issues with Rusev. But I think I am going to agree with you. I think somehow Penta is going to find a way to come out of this and what absolutely could be match of the night weekend. I think there's a lot of hopes for this one, and obviously historically these matches have always been a ton of fun. With the IC title, with the ladders, I think the expectations are certainly there. But I do think the best decision is probably Penta here. Honorable mention to Rusev because I think that despite the go home curse, as you already hit on as well, I think having him win here, just making a mess of everyone as he did on Raw this week, I think would be a great kind of decision for that. And then we could see Penta and Rusev, I think, put on some classics as well. But I do think Penta is probably the best choice here to retain. The next match of the evening has the Demon Finn Balor going up against Dominik Mysterio. A very long build, although the gas was kind of let up here recently. But in terms of matches, the actual match, KP, who do you have coming out of this one?
I think there's one very big importance to this matchup, and that is the Demon. The fact that we're going to get Demon Finn Balor on this WrestleMania matchup, I think, is extremely pivotal to this matchup. We see the Demon in recent years on his last couple of appearances taking losses, and naturally for something so beloved and quite important in the grand scheme of things, this is a very rare occasion that we get to see the Demon Finn Balor. I think you have to restore some prestige, and in order to do that, you have to get wins. Dominik Mysterio has had a great time, in the last year or so. I think he's had a fantastic year, just absolutely killing it. He's AAA champion still, been the IC champion, and he's been on the ascendancy in this feud as well. So that's quite important how that sort of leads into this one, because he's been sort of the dominant force. He's been, sort of taking out Balor at every opportunity. And I think there's an opportunity now for Finn Balor to sort of to steady that ship, to sort of leave the Judgment Day situation behind him, and he can put Dominik Mysterio away here with a victory, and then go out after this one. I hope, fingers crossed anyway, he can move on to something a lot bigger and, better for himself from a personal standpoint, whether it's a championship feud, winning some singles gold in 2026. I would love to see him doing something along those lines. It doesn't have to be immediately, but just sort of bringing some sort of sense of prestige back to Balor and bringing the fun back, bringing this, just the old times, just getting it back into a rhythm. I think that'd be great to see because he's brilliant given the chance. So that's what I'm looking for. That's what I'm hoping for in this matchup. I think it makes most sense just to give the Demon a victory. So I'm going to go with Finn to win over Dom. That's my thoughts. That's what I hope, and that's what I think. Nick, Do you agree? Do you think Demon's got to get this done? I'm sure you do. What are your thoughts?
I think that would be one of the biggest upsets. Oh, absolutely would be the biggest upset of the weekend. I think if Fenn were to lose here with the Demon persona, obviously that whole persona has taken a hit, as you've kind of already hit on. But to lose here after bringing him back to kind of take care of Dom would be a terrible decision. Wouldn't be the first one they've made for Demon Fen, but hopefully they've realized that they brought him back, especially on the Mania stage. Yeah, I just can't make up any scenario that would make sense for him to lose here. Yeah, Demon Fen to win here, carry on. I'd love for him to carry on the gimmick. You know, I don't know that it has to be every single PLE, but more consistent appearances. I think we've been away from the bad decisions long enough that we can start that recovery process here and have him just be a singles player, as you mentioned. And would love to see some gold on Demon Fen in 2026. Yeah, I think the winner here and one of the most confident predictions of the weekend, Demon Fen here to beat Dominik Mysterio. The next match of the evening has Trick Williams going up against Sami Zayn for the United States Championship. KP, I know this one is a struggle for us in terms of the build and how we got here because of the United States Championship being added. You obviously a huge fan of Sami Zayn. What do you want to happen, and what do you think will happen for this one?
Very big questions posed there. Yeah, I've been critical. Obviously, I love Sammy so much, but the build has been questionable, to say the least. I feel bad for Carmelo Hayes still, but that's another conversation for another day. We've already had that on our build video. As for this matchup and who I think is going to walk out of here with a victory, I mean, when Sammy first won the title, I went in my head, I was like, oh, that means he'll just drop the title to Trick Williams at WrestleMania. You know, just makes complete sense. It's logical. The more I think about it, though, is that really the best decision here? It probably is in the grand scheme of things. Hear me out. It probably is the best situation, Trick winning this matchup. But, and hear me out again, if you have Sami Zayn officially do his heel turn here, win this matchup, defeat Trick Williams, the crowd have a rightful reason to boo him because A, they've been booing him already. You know, it just seemingly rolls on, and that's fine. But B, if he does something cheap, if he takes advantage of opportunity, I don't know what that opportunity would be. I feel like that would just naturally bring the heat onto him in a way that it just makes everything more logical in a sense that Sam is no longer questioning it. He's already shown signs of sort of, you know, wanting to achieve more and to maybe develop a different mindset, but he's sort of still fighting against his inner demons, still telling himself that he's doing it the right way. But in recent weeks, we haven't seen him doing it necessarily the right way. So we have seen some sort of character progression in that sense. I feel like we sort of keep that ball moving. We have him win this matchup by some sort of cheapy sort of way. That then puts more heat on Sammy and then gives the fans a rightful reason to boo him. And then maybe Sammy just drops the title to Trick Williams a little bit later down the line. Maybe we turn Trick Williams face after this, after what happens. I don't know. With the whole Lil Yachty situation, that does seem unlikely. But I think perhaps if we just eject him from the conversation after Mania, maybe he's just around for the big stage and the big build. If we do get that sort of face turn from Trick afterwards, that would probably be a better time for him to win, and the crowd would probably rejoice a lot more in that. I think there's a bigger moment still to come from this one, and it does sort of mean that we have to have a bit of a stopgap first, do a little bit of progression, and then we work towards that moment later on. That's where my head's at right now. But on the other hand of things, I will say that Sammy losing just is probably the more logical choice, just to, you know, just because what are we doing? But I'm going to go with Sammy to win. I really do think that's going to be the case here. Might be a hot take, but I think in the bigger picture, that just makes way more sense. I really, really do. Nick, what about you, though? What are you thinking? Do you actually agree with me in a sense here, or are you going with probably the more clear-cut option of just get a title off of Sammy and go with Trick?
The build for this has just been so strange. It really like how do we get here? It just happened so fast. Yeah, feel bad for Carmelo. But on that note, we saw Carmelo nursing an injury in the trainer's room, whatever you make of that. But Does Carmelo come into play here? I feel like that absolutely could be a possibility, and I think maybe a way to extend this and maybe insert him into this match, call it a triple threat at Backlash. I could absolutely see them doing that, and I haven't called for any interference matches throughout WrestleMania Saturday or Sunday yet, but I think this is probably the biggest possibility for maybe a DQ finish. The fans wouldn't like it, but it would help elongate that story and then insert him into this feud that you could argue, Sami shouldn't be involved in with the United States Championship, obviously. Because that was the point, not that long ago. It was supposed to be Trick for Sammy without the title. But I think that absolutely could be a decision they make here. If that's not the case, however, though, obviously this is tough for me as well. I love Trick Williams. Obviously has been killing it on the main roster as well. Yeah, it's definitely it's hard because Sammy just got the title as well, but in kind of the way he did it, so suddenly. I can't think of any other reason why they would have made that pivot, unless Carmelo's injury is legitimate, which I haven't seen that one bit. So honestly, I don't know. Um, I think it makes the most sense for Sammy to retain, whether that be for Carmelo coming in, attacking him, getting caught or something. I could see that happening. Great. Again, the fans wouldn't love that, but as long as we get a decent match before that, I think I'm going to go with Sammy to retain here. I think Trick will absolutely get his moment, just not yet. The next match of the evening has Rhea Ripley going up against Jade Cargill for the WWE Women's Championship. KP, what you got coming out of this one?
I think in the early stages of this build, I was absolutely crying out for Rhea Ripley to win the championship. What I will say is I don't feel quite as strongly toward that now, but I still do share the same sentiments. I felt like the build was really shocking to begin with, and obviously we've discussed that before. I just I don't really rate Jade right now. I was looking forward to a title reign. At first I was excited for her. I thought it was her moment. It's a good opportunity for her to get that first championship and sort of like see what she does with it. After seeing what has been done with it, um, I'm not particularly impressed or a fan of what has happened since, and that's not just coming from a standpoint of WWE right now being so shockingly bad booking championship pictures. That has been apparent. I get that. We discussed this a lot. There aren't many that are actually booked well, to be fair, in the modern day. So I'm sort of removing that element. But Jade is just failing to sort of move me anymore. And I don't really get that sort of sense of aura that I had from her, in the build up to her winning the championship. I thought she had a bit of a pretty good chase with Tiffany Stratton at the time. But yeah, the title reign's been disappointing, and I don't really care for it, honestly. It's just been a bit lackluster. But what I will know is that if Rhea Ripley gets it, I know that championship prestige would rise right back up. So honestly, I just want a better picture, and for that I'm going to go with Rhea Ripley to win. Maybe that's more hope than anything, rather than thinking who will win. Obviously, we've got B-Fab and Michin who could be involved here. We've got the history with Io Sky coming into play. But that's been very much against Rhea and Io in the build. So maybe that sort of does open the opportunity for Io to sort of capitalize, sort of get the upper hand here and to sort of help out Rhea Ripley in lieu of her winning the championship against Jade. So that's what I'm going to go with. I'm going to go with Rhea to win. I think it does make sense logically, but also it's just sort of a hopeful thing because I think it will be better if that was to be the case. Nick, what are you thinking here? Do you agree with Ripley or are you going to go with Jade?
Yeah, you make some good points there. I think I will say this though, if Jade is to figure out a way to win here, obviously with her team there, newly formed team with Michin and BFAB, I think that could draw her some pretty serious heat, especially if Io gets involved and they get the better of Rhea and Io once again on the Mania stage. I think they could get her some really big heat. You can call it whatever kind of heat you want, but at the end of the day, heat is heat. So I do think you raised a good point on Jade. I think they did a lot of protecting there at the beginning. You can only do that so long. I think she still has potential. I just think she needs some more time. Her character is obviously like her look is great. Having some added support, I think is something they should have done probably from the get go as well. I don't know that I love the people that they are using, but and the way they did it, but I think that is something that was probably long overdue. I think she has potential to get the title back, but I think if anyone's going to overcome a 3-1 odds or even a 3-2 odd, absolutely is going to be Rhea Ripley. And we had her away from the main title scene for a while, so I think with people like her, and I think you kind of worry about you know, uh, putting them in the title scene too much. I don't feel like that's really the case with Rhea. It's been a while since she's had one. I think Rhea will get that with the WWE Women's Championship on this occasion, and yeah, carry forward. I have no doubt that Jade will still stick around. She'll claim whatever reason she needs to and have the support behind her. Probably see that at Backlash even as well. But yeah, I do think Rhea winning here is the right decision. I think Jade will probably get another opportunity, maybe at a mid card title though, as she can kind of build up her in ring presence if possible. But yeah, I'm going to go with Rhea Ripley as well. The main event to WrestleMania Sunday. Roman Reigns going up against CM Punk, who is defending his World Heavyweight Championship. And we hit on this one in the build video. We didn't care a ton for this one, but I want to ask the question: do you prefer this one over Saturday, or vice versa? And who do you have coming out of this one as World Heavyweight Champion?
Honestly, I'd say the feeling's mutual towards both. I care just as little about this one as I do the other one. It's quite crazy. This is probably the first WrestleMania in a long time where both main events don't really move me whatsoever. Um, because of obviously builds and this like that and the other. For this one though, like I I don't really have a preference. I don't care who walks out of this one as the world champion because at the end of the day, like I say, I've not been bothered by it whatsoever. Like I like certain elements of this feud, very small parts, but you know, you're talking like a very small percentage, maybe about 15% of it. That's not enough to get me fully interested. What I will say though is one of these guys is a part timer, one of them is more of a full timer. So I guess I would hope that the full timer walks out of this one with the championship, and that would be CM Punk. But you know, even still, I don't really care to be honest. Like, it doesn't really matter to me. But yeah, I think I'll just go with Punk to win just because he's the full timer in this one. That's maybe a thinking that, you know, why put the title on Roman if he's not going to show up? Similar to that of AJ Lee from night one. I just can't really see the point in that being the case here. So yeah, I'll just go with Punk to win. But yeah, I don't know. It's a really weird one. Like both world titles for the men's division just seemingly not really getting me invested whatsoever, which is quite strange. But I guess, you know, WWE's done such a grand job this year and you know, building things up. And maybe some people are liking this one. You know, maybe I'm in the minority. I probably am. It's probably a hot take, but I know you're not overly keen either. But maybe you're a bit more interested than I am. I don't know. I'm not really sure who's probably more interested. But yeah, I'll go with Punk. Just more of a hope than anything, really. What about you, Nick?
Yeah, I'm actually looking forward to Saturday more. I think the match itself could be better. Um, and kind of hit on that in the build too. Like Pat McAfee's name has been mentioned in this feud as well. Does he play a part in this as well? Does Randy win and Pat kind of come get involved in this? If so, like how does that all work out? Like definitely the waters have been pretty muddy. And what has been essentially a promo feud between these two, and getting ample time to do so on a weekly basis when Roman is around. When he's not, Punk carries the load, and that plays into my next topic, which you already hit on as well. We are very consistent in our opinion towards part timers, even if we like the part timer, in this case Roman, more than we do a typical part timer. But you can't, you can't let that kind of come into play. You have to stick to that part-time status. We don't want a title around a part-time champ or a part-time talent, regardless, because it obviously does devalue it. So this is probably the first time I've ever been rooting for Punk in my life. Obviously, I'm not a big Punk guy, but he deserves it. He's been carrying the feud for the weeks that Roman wasn't there. With the Usos and whatnot, even from the beginning. So yeah, first time probably for me to have Punk, want Punk to win, and I do think he will. Even though I've heard the rumblings that Roman was in store for a big year. I hope not, because if he's around as much as he has been, I think that does kind of hurt. And this is the Mania build. Obviously, he's going to be around more now than he would be after winning this. So, yeah, I'm hopeful that Punk will win. But yeah, WrestleMania Sunday main event as a whole. KP, which night card are you looking forward to more? And for WrestleMania Sunday, what are you thinking could be potential match of the night and or weekend?
I'd say I'm probably more looking forward to Saturday, just because you got 7 matches as opposed to 6, which obviously you get an extra one there. But only that, well, not only that, because I think generally speaking, some of the matches on night one just sort of interest me a bit more. But in terms of this night alone here with night two, I think there are some fascinating affairs that are part of this one. Um, I think it's more like hoping results more than anything really from this. But just the fact that the main event doesn't really interest me is just the kick in the teeth, because we build a lot on main events, right? They obviously have a lot of weight. We want them to be great. But because these aren't really hitting for me personally, it's hard to really be invested in that. So yeah, that sort of is like a grand sort of like issue for me. So that's like my probably like my biggest lowest point, I guess you could say. Biggest lowest point, you get what I've been trying to say. But yeah, that's probably like the bottom of the radar for me personally. But in terms of the matchups on night two that I am looking forward to, though, what I will say is probably Dom and Finn. Like I'm excited for that one. I think that'd be great. As long as Demon gets the victory, we go from there. And obviously the Intercontinental Championship ladder match. I think they're probably the two I'm most looking forward to. Um, Generally speaking, I think there are some other good ones on there, but they're the top two for me personally right now. I think they'll probably provide them the biggest talking points for me going forward, just from an interest point. But what about you then, Nick? What card are you most looking forward to? I think you've already touched up that you're more looking forward to Saturday. But yeah, what are your like biggest hopes for WrestleMania Sunday in terms of the biggest matches you think will be?
I do prefer Saturday over Sunday. It's not by a lot though. I think Sunday has a lot of potential depending on decisions that are made. Like obviously if Oba goes over like I think he should, I think obviously that will be a huge moment. IC title match obviously has potential to be great, as does Demon Finn Balor against Dominik Mysterio. I think Trick Williams and Sami Zayn could be a ton of fun too. So make of that what you will. But definitely Demon Finn and Intercontinental title as well. Sorry to steal your answer there. But yeah, I am looking more forward to Saturday. And yeah, the main event is a bit of a drag because neither of them, are super high on our list and shouldn't, should be, something we're looking forward to, but unfortunately isn't the case. I think you could argue there are other matches. Led versus Vaquer, I think, for instance, could have been better suited as a main event, would have been more appropriate, at least in our eyes, I think. But yeah, with that, enough from us over here at the push. What are you all making of WrestleMania Saturday or excuse me, WrestleMania Sunday and WrestleMania Saturday as a whole? We'd love to hear from you in the comments below. As always, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button if you like this video and or what we're putting out on a weekly basis. We'd love to hear from you. But until next time, this has been The Push with Nick and KP. We'll see you soon. Take care.